This week, another ordinary American scene was turned into a war zone. The actions of one man, retired accountant Stephen Paddock, have cost the lives of 58 innocent people. More than 500 are wounded, some fighting for their lives. The world is rightly horrified. I wonder how many people know, however, that there have already been 273 mass shootings in America so far this year alone. Aside from the attack in Las Vegas, there were 6 other mass shootings in America just this week. Perhaps the only thing more inevitable than these truly horrific crimes is the ensuing debate about gun control. Whilst victims are grieving, America's increasingly powerful gun lobby is gearing up for a fresh war of its own. They tweet pictures of guns draped in the American flag. They claim, nonsensically in this case, that if more people were armed, things would be better. In Trump, they have a friend in the highest of places. And so the killing has continued. This time, it has to stop.
I mean, logically, you're right, and yet none of us believe it'll happen, do we? The truth is, there are 265 million guns in America. There's more guns than there are adults. Whatever you do, those guns are going to be out there, they're still going to be there. If Obama couldn't change it, who believed clearly, passionately, that there should be some restriction on being able to buy guns, Trump's not going to do it. It is not going to change. What we're going to happen is there'll be all protests of indignation and the rest of it, and it goes away, and the news agenda moves on, and 6 months later there'll be another mass killing, and the same thing happens again.
It won't be that long.
This is about the gun lobby, isn't it? Because even Trump, I have here one of my favourite pieces of bedtime reading, The America We Deserve by Donald J. Trump. And this is what he said about guns. I generally oppose gun control, but I support the ban on assault weapons, and I also support a slightly longer waiting period to purchase a gun. So even Trump, before this was written well before he came into office, understood the argument for some measures of gun control. And now he's completely abandoned them. And I think that is a better example than Obama, who was always in favour of gun control, of how the gun lobby control politicians in America.
That was written before Trump. And I'm not defending Trump, but
I know.
If ever, as Greg so rightly said, we go back to 2012, to the Sandy Hook, 20 children, aged 6 and 7, a few days before Christmas, were shot. If ever it was, and I think Obama did try, and Greg's absolutely right. But what you don't know, and unfortunately as I lived there, it is, they see it as an unalienable right to carry a gun. Now, the fact that and I've said this to them, and I've actually been at dinner parties with rational, sane people who says, well, of course I've got a gun in my wardrobe. I think you're a successful businessman, you work in Manhattan, you go home, you've got a gun, you're living in Westchester County, you're raving mad. You know, and the key here, which is what I wanted to show you, is just the sort of gun that this man deployed. Now, you may know that these are semi-automatic rifles, and it was made an automatic rifle. Let's just see the power and how rapidly they can discharge these rounds.
This is why these things are not consistent and not preferred. I'm even going to put my right leg rearward to try to brace myself, and you're still going to see my torso get pushed backwards. Again, only a total jackass would use one of these.
And only jackasses in America, because you say to them, we don't have this in Britain, we don't have this in Europe, we don't have this in Australia, we don't have this in... What is it? And they'll never let them go. You're right, but as Greg, they're never going to go.
The thing is, though, I think for us as outsiders, none of us are American. It is hard to understand the mentality because it's so foreign to us. But at the same time, the majority of Americans actually do not support...
No, I don't.
The majority of Americans want gun control.
I don't agree.
It's not a majority who feel this way.
That is simply not true.
No, and I'm not saying that the majority of Americans don't want guns.
In Las
I'm saying they support gun control.
Lots of ordinary people were talked to and interviewed about guns, and they're in the midst of this tragedy, and they were still looking at the bloodstained streets. Every single person that was spoken to was asked if they had a gun. They all said yes. Do you want to give them up? No, because their argument is if the good guy. No, but you're saying the majority of people want to give it up.
I'm talking about closing loopholes
talking about
I'm talking about the fact you can buy a
control
bump
it.
stock that turns a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. It's logically nonsensical, and the majority of Americans
part of their side
favour
Just quickly
gun
explain,
control.
a bump stock is a thing you bolt on the back of this rifle and then you don't have to open and reload it, and so it makes it an automatic rifle.
But so I agree with you. I think that these gun controls should be... I don't think there should be guns in America. I think it's ridiculous. But to me, it's not hard to understand what's going on. I don't agree with people's perspectives that have this view, but I know a lot of Americans, and they are, as you describe, normal, my friends, decent, normal people. When you have a conversation with them about their views on guns, they feel so strongly about... We are protecting ourselves and our families. That's why we have these guns. They're saying that actually when you go to bed at night, you know, you want to feel safe, you want to protect your houses, your homes, the people in it. They feel so strongly that so many bad people have got guns and they want to defend themselves. What you're going to have now is if you tried to get rid of guns, if you said to everybody now, right, OK, gun amnesty, everyone will give you $1,000 or whatever if you hand your guns in, which is the kind of thing that should be happening, the good people are going to be saying, well, I'm not going to give mine up because all the baddies are still going to get theirs and all the rest of it. And obviously, I know it's different state to state in America, but there is no real reason for anybody to have a gun. And what I'd be looking at is going, right, OK, if it's too far, if it's too difficult to get rid of all guns, what can we do in terms of control? So even silly things like putting child safety locks or whatever on a gun to actually stop, because you see so many... But you see so many kids picking up the guns and shooting over kids and stuff. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Let me show you a clip from someone from the National Rifle Association.
The only way to stop a monster from killing our kids is to be personally involved and invested in a plan of absolute protection. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
It's hard to see how taking the Las Vegas killing, that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, but it is the point Michelle is making.
Yeah,
it is the point Michelle is making.
I want guns completely gone, but what I'm saying is when people are saying, oh, it makes no sense, why do they feel so strongly? I'm telling you, from the people I've spoke to, they feel so strongly because they are saying, I want to protect myself and everybody. There was this case, and I might have got my dates wrong, it was something like 1997, there was these two guys that robbed a bank, right? And they had these guns that they'd converted into these automatic guns. They had something like 200-300 police that was trying to stop these two guys. They couldn't because the police were basically outpowered by these very, very powerful weapons. The police responded by basically increasing the power of their arsenal to stop that situation happening again. So this is the problem. You've got a gun, I'm going to make my gun more powerful than yours. You've got one gun, I'm going to make sure I've got two guns. This guy, this Stephen fella that did this Vegas thing, God only knows what he was doing, because when you hear more about this story, the care and consideration he'd taken, he'd put cameras in the room, he'd apparently taken down smoke detectors, he'd set himself... There's something not quite right going on.
But these stories, these are the ones that make the headlines. But what we don't hear is that 7 children a day are dying in America.
But have you noticed
that mass killings are happening
over
all the time?
this particular incident and over lots of the gun incidents, there's not the kind of anger. If Stephen Paddock had had an Arab-sounding surname, America would have had a collective enemy. They would have had to go and they would have said, no, this is an attack on the heartland. If it had been a Mexican guy, they would have said, you know, this is the wrong kind of Mexican we're letting in. But they're not going on about this because they know this is the problem of their own making. They can't solve it until they give up the guns. This will keep happening in America again and again, many more times than it happens anywhere else. Because but you can't kill 60 people with a knife. But they know it's a problem of their own making, and yet still they want to keep the guns. And Nick's right. If Sandy Hook and 20 kids getting slaughtered is not going to change the gun laws, I can't see what is.
It's interesting, though, I think, the political reaction, that the idea that this isn't the time to talk about gun controls, which is basically what everyone said. Trump said it. No, if a plane went down, nobody would say this isn't the time to talk about what went wrong with aviation disaster.
Because
politicians don't want to talk about gun control because they know nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nothing will change. Yeah.
I refuse to share all of your pessimism. I think I get the scale of the challenge.
Get rid of these
the
guns?
thing is, when you look at the statistics of, in America, how people actually feel, there is a very vocal, I know, and incredibly powerful, ultimately minority who support basically having no gun controls. And I think that it's shocking how many of these mass killings there have been without anything changing. But there has got to be a critical mass where people say, our children are dying, innocent people are dying, enough is enough.
Well, I think more Americans have been killed by their own hands than have died in the world wars.
12,000 people almost dead this year. 24,000 people injured this year alone. They're not going to stop it, and it's tragic.